All right, perfect, man. So, how's it going?
Really good, man. How you been?
Amazing. Yeah, life's good. Life's good.
I love what you're doing. I think that the collaboration in this area of law raises tides for everybody. And I think that that's so often, especially with estate planning, people have been so scared about sharing the secret sauce. Like we're competing with each other. It's like there are a million people in the county. You got six people coming to your workshop. Don't act like you're king of the pile. So
Yeah, man. It's like the whole. I don't know the way I view it is the more people that are doing better at the profession, right? It just creates better goodwill.
yeah.
So if you're running your business better,
I mean, people don't understand that. Yeah, there's a lot of competitors now trying to do like these wills that you do online and stuff like that. But that wasn't the business any of us were in. Nobody's
no,
out here trying to crank out $100 wills, or if you are, tell me what that business model is that makes money, right? Like,
right?
and so I think that that's something that I think that you and a couple other people on, the internet right now are doing a great job of as far as just bringing collaboration. Let's share some stuff. Let's get education out there.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I kind of started out. I don't know. We mail a lot of postcards, right? We do a
Yeah.
lot of marketing. That's like, and so I've been in some of these other groups like estate planning professionals, um, and I would chime in on like the sales and marketing questions or comments people would have, and I'd say, "Oh yeah, we mail 60,000 postcards a month," and then I get a direct message, "Hey, you mind talking with me for a little bit?" And over the last year, I've probably met with 15, 20 attorneys privately. And then one day I was supposed to meet with someone and someone else was like, "Hey, can I join too?" And it's like, you know what? Why don't I just do a webinar, right? Just like open it up to everyone. So I did it on the estate planning professionals. I posted, "Hey, we're going to have this, we're going to broadcast it." And we had like 120 attorneys come. I was like, holy shit. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I got a ton of got a ton of positive feedback, and people are really, really appreciative. And yeah, it's been a blast. It's like,
I would love to know how many people like execute on it though. I feel like estate planning attorneys in general, like not to be disparaging, are all about education, but the execution is where like the lacking is. So like if you could do a survey of those 120, like who's mailed a single postcard since, right? Like I
yeah,
think you posted like the cool graphic that you use, the company you use, and they give away like the first 5,000 for free. Like who even did those? Like that's I think that's the struggle is you come out and you're trying to tell people like this is the way to the water, and they're like, "Great, I have the map." It's like how do we take the step towards it?
yeah,
People in all kinds of groups that are like, it's impossible for a firm to help more than 20 or 30 people a month. And I think you guys probably get this too. It's like, no, man, we're doing like we have days where we can onboard more than 15 clients in a day sometimes. I mean, you can't have this limiting belief. And so to see people out there really showing the path, I think is so cool.
yeah, for sure. I think a lot of what I've seen is there's not enough delegation of work. Um, yeah, when Ashley and I started, I was working a sales job. I was working at Postcard Mania,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
yeah, that's how I really learned sales. Was working there. I thought I knew sales before that. I didn't know shit. Um, but so she was at home. She had started the practice in May of 2020. I was working there. Towards the end, she was doing billable hours, just business law.
Mhm.
By the end of the year, it was like I was noticing she wasn't getting enough billable hours in. Like, why aren't you? Right? What the hell? And it really came down to her doing other administrative tasks. And so once I added up the hours, I was like, okay, well, if I leave here and get you more billable hours, we're going to make more money. So when I came and started working with her, it was just her and um, I took all the administrative stuff, right? And so she almost accidentally delegated work to me.
Yeah.
Um, and when I look at the amount of stuff that I've done for the business, right? It's equally as much as what she's done, right? But if we weren't doing it together, it would be very, very difficult, because she gets mired in the legal work,
Oh
right?
yeah.
The consults and the legal work, and it's like,
Well, I think
yeah,
that's where we
and
feel comfortable as attorneys, right? We kind of have this idea of what that relationship should look like. Whenever I joined this firm, it was actually my mom's firm, and her goal was to really only help like 3 or 4 people a month. Like that was her like plan. And then she wanted me to come work with her, and I'm like, sort of probably the same situation that you were having with your wife, and it's like, um, like, where's we got to
where
help,
you gonna,
but we got to help ourselves too. We got to make sure that there's enough money to pay the bills. Like, I can come work for you for like $10 an hour. We got to figure what this looks like. And I think that's what holds so many people back is, and I know this is cliche to say, but sometimes the ego of like, I'm the attorney, I can do it all. Nobody can do it better than me. We've used non-attorney salespeople or whatever, you want to call them for over 8 years. And I'll
wow,
tell you, even for us, like me and my mom, Cindy, we went through 2 different thousands of dollar trainings before we would even accept the idea that it was possible. Like, I mean, we paid a company thousands of dollars twice before we believed that it was real. I mean, it was just, and it's easy to like look back and laugh now, clearly it all worked quite well. But like at the time,
tell,
I mean,
tell me about that. What happened and yeah, who'd you go to see? Like, because I haven't heard about something
yeah, do
like
you mind
that.
if I don't want to name drop if I'm not supposed to. Is
No,
that
no, no, no. You don't need. You can if you want. You don't. It's up to you.
so? We were coaching with a company called How to Manage a Small Law Firm, and this guy Arjon Robbins runs it. They do a pretty good job of helping firms get to like $1 million in revenue. Um, just like everything else in the world, they got some people that hate them, some people that love them. Guy made me a millionaire, so I'm a pretty big fan of his. We don't coach with him anymore, but he has like this coaching program that you have like a CEO fractional type thing that you meet with once a month or every couple of weeks or whatever. And then you go to these quarterly events that are huge, 400 plus people, attorney, like live events all around the country. And then they sell you extra workshops on top of that. And one of the workshops that they sold was, what's called How to Train Your Dragon, or this like how to get a non-attorney to sell for you. And we went and we're like, well, yeah, that's easy for PI. Yeah, that's easy for crim. Clearly
Right.
bankruptcy's got it, but estate planning, we're special snowflakes. There's no way that this is going to work, right? And me and Cindy both went through the training. I mean, and then we came back, and for like the next 90 days, we're like, okay, well, what would this take? Let's just us try and use these strategies and see if it works. And they're really smart strategies. Don't give away legal advice in the consult. I mean, duh. Like,
Right.
but as an attorney, like in your back pocket, you have kind of two things that are different than a non-attorney salespeople, right? You have first the fact that you can always overcome objections with the like legal stuff if you need to, which you would fire your non-attorney salespeople for doing.
Yeah.
And then, especially like if it's you or your wife and your last name's on the door, you get a little provenance with that, right? People feel good whenever they're meeting with Cindy or with Josh, just because it's sort of like if you go to the doctor and the guy comes in with a white coat and then you find out he's a PA versus, oh, this is my doctor, right?
Yeah.
And so we were trying to figure out how we do this, and we used some of their sales strategies, and it started really working well. Then we said, okay, like what kind of person would we need to hire to do this? I mean, again, keep in mind this was 9 years ago now, so it was kind of before this idea had really taken off the way that it has today. And I really do think this guy's the one that kind of started it. And then we went to another training, and we're like, okay, let's go work out the kinks. And the second training was a little different than the first. It was a lot more role play and stuff like that, of how you build your script, how you build the way that you sell, how you deliver that value proposition without getting into the legal weeds. Where most estate planners, they're trying to wow people with how much you know about a durable power of attorney and how it's different than a limited power of attorney, or this is your advanced healthcare directive and this is your HIPAA and your medical. And really what the families are generally looking for is, I got a problem. I'm worried that if something happens to me, I haven't laid out my decisions in a way that's legal. And whenever I die, I don't want to pay money in taxes, have my family tied up in court, or go through any kind of weird lawsuits. And we're over here as attorneys, like, here's the 6 different types of trusts we can sell you.
Yeah.
And so that was a heck of a learning curve for me. I'll fully admit that. But once I got that down and really figured out how to talk to people in the language that they wanted to speak with, it worked well. And then we found that for non-attorney salespeople, they didn't have to overcome that the same way that the attorneys or the associates would. So they're coming in there talking like normal people anyway, like already in their script, in their head, they're kind of taking what you told them in legalese and transferring it into what common people, normal people can digest anyway. And so then it's like a kick in the gut whenever their conversion rates like the same as yours and a higher case value. And you're like, oh God.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins and, Jim Rohn always talk about like training fleas, right? If you put the cover on the cup, nobody thinks they can jump higher than that. And then you can remove the cover. They still just don't ever jump out. And we found that to be the case with like a lot of the non-attorney salespeople is, if you came in and you got a new person and you tell her, all right, the conversion rate should be 80%. They just know that's the standard. And all of a sudden they're at 80%. Heck, Joe, you might have been converting at 65%, but because that person's coming in there without the biases and the disbelief and all the stuff that you have in your mind, they're like, nope, standard's 80%. I'm going to close at 80%.
Yeah.
And it was wild to see that. And so, again,
That's
our John
interesting.
Roberts, How to Manage a Small Law Firm, really helped us get that part down. And that was huge as far as, sort of like whenever you talk about actually getting out of the non-billable stuff. Like one of the things that's crazy is like we give free consults. That's something that I'll die on the hill for. Everybody
We
else
do
says
too.
charge. I get it. But if you really want to do volume, there's a lot of people that self-select out even for $100 or $300 or whatever. And so for us, we do free consults. And essentially what we were doing is subsidizing those free consults with the people that paid. And that wasn't really fair whenever it was an attorney. If it's a non-attorney salesperson, it really makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
You got your attorneys, your associates, your partners, your owners sitting there in those meetings for free. Now all of a sudden you're kind of overcharging the people that do pay because you spent time with people that didn't. And that was a huge change in thinking for me, is how do we not just provide the crazy amount of value to leads, but are we okay changing our business to say, I want to provide a crazy amount of value for clients. I want to be able to give so much to the clients and give them such a great experience that now all of a sudden we get that word of mouth, we get those referrals. So over a third of our business always each month regularly comes from past client referrals. And just to be blunt, we don't even really ask for them. It's just you do a good enough job and they go tell people.
Yeah. Yeah. That does happen for sure. Huh. So how would a non-attorney salesperson explain, an estate plan, for example, without giving legal advice?
Yeah, it's just talking to them about what their problem is. How is their problem affecting them? It's whenever somebody comes in and so we do more elder law or like more in-depth planning than just estate planning. But let's say that somebody comes in and they're 55, they're thinking about retirement, they got nothing in place. Usually there's some kind of triggering event. It wasn't just that they woke up today and were like, you know what, I need a will. They saw somebody in their family go through something. They saw somebody at work go through something. Somebody at church told them that they had a bad experience with probate. Somebody got diagnosed with something that was scary. I think for most people, the third of the check that's missing whenever you get your paycheck that goes to Medicare and stuff like that, you always just assume that's going to cover all my medical needs whenever I get older. And then all of a sudden somebody tells us that assumption is way wrong. And there's like this whole other cost center. That's a big focus for a lot of people we meet with. And so the first part that we always have, whether it's me doing sales or the non-attorney person doing sales, figure out what that is. What was their motivator? What do they believe the problem is? And again, this is where historically, or before I kind of got trained in this, I think as an attorney, I wanted to be like, this is the solution. And there's a guy named Joe Polish that runs a great place called Genius Network. And he always has this quote where he says, sell them what they want, give them what they need. And so a lot of estate planning attorneys, especially elder law attorneys, try and fight tooth and nail about how people don't need a will. They need more. But what do people call in asking for? A will.
Right.
So say, hey, great, we're going to do that. But while you're here, we're going to do some other things too to make sure that you're really protected. We're going to see this as a relationship, not a transaction. We're going to make sure that even though you need a will, you need this power of attorney. And really, you want to avoid probate, so you need this trust. Things like that. But at the beginning of every sales consult, I think, has to start with identifying what motivated them to do something different today than they've done for the last 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, what do they view the problem as? Because if you're going in and not understanding what they think the problem is, sales is really hard.
Yeah. You end up pushing something that they don't think is an issue.
Yeah. So like with our non-attorney salespeople in our state, we're allowed to do like video recordings and really have like a rubric that we grade them against. And it's like a really cool setup where they can go back and see like their past tape, game tape, to be able to self-correct. And then we audit them too, to make sure they're not doing anything wacky in there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's just stressful as an owner is whenever the salesperson doesn't shut up after they've sold, right? It's like the person on the other side of the table, at least one spouse, maybe both, are like, yep, ready to write you a $7,000 check.
And they just keep going.
Then like even the salespeople, as they've been with you longer, they get that knowledge that your attorneys have. And then they want to kind of be like the smartest gal in the room or the smartest guy in the room, right? And they're like, they become oblivious to those soft skills about, man, this lady was about to write you a $7,000 check, and now all of a sudden she's confused, and confused minds don't do things. Now
right.
She's got to go talk to somebody. She's got to go think about it. It's like you created more objections because you didn't just solve the problem that she said she wanted solved.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. People do that a lot, salespeople. Or yeah.
Watching videotapes, I have to do it like certain times of the day to make sure that it doesn't like ruin my mood. It's sort of like everybody should be listening to their intake calls, right? So for us, almost everybody's going to come through a phone call at some point, even if it's a web form, even if it's like a lead. At some point, somebody in my team's going to talk to them for a second.
Same. And
the first time that you really start listening to those calls, man, it just feels like you got punched in the face. You're like,
I know, dude.
They said that. I can't believe they said, like, it's every firm I've ever talked to that actually starts looking at this stuff. It's so stressful. It's so infuriating. And it's almost like self-guilt because you're like, you knew you should be doing this. You knew you trained him once 6 months ago. We probably should have checked up on it. And that's why in our firm, one of the biggest things that we've done as we scaled is make sure that everybody knows the rubric. Whenever I say that, like what they're graded against, so that they can, it's not a surprise, right? Think about how many jobs you've had. I won't make you call it, especially because you do have a postcard mania good referral thing there. But like in your past, like whenever you went out and did an awesome job in your mind, and then it felt like your boss was like, gotcha. Like,
Right. Yeah.
the way that we kind of talk about it in the firm is um, like figure skating versus ice hockey. You know, they're both on the same ice, but with figure skating, you work your whole life. You go do your absolute best couple minute routine. And whenever your chest is just pounding in and out of breath, you stand there and people hold up some scores. And at that point in time, there's nothing you can do to change it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why most places I've ever worked grade you as an employee. You know, it's okay. What were your billables? What's your NPS rating? Like, but if it's only looked at it like that end point, you don't know what you need to do effort wise because none of us are ever really working at full scale, right? It's impossible. And so
Yep.
we try and treat it more like hockey, same ice, but you're out there and you know if you're up or below, right? You know if somebody's 2 pucks up on you and you need to skate faster or you need to be more aggressive. You need to make sure that you get over, you know, kind of where you need to get to. And it's not perfect, but it's really helped to make sure that those kind of communication channels are open. It feels less punitive. It feels more collaborative. People culture wise are way happier. I don't think anybody truly comes into work and is like, I'm going to screw off today, or I'm just here for a paycheck. I think everybody that's worked for me in the past, I think everybody that works for me today really does wake up and try and be like, I want to do the best. I want to win. I want to succeed. But we do such a horrible job, or I do such a horrible job as a leader often in doing that, that this has been really cool for me to try and build that muscle over the years.
Yeah. So what are you doing? Uh, I guess, are you keeping statistics? Like, how are you grading their production?
Yeah, we do. We have a non-legal CRM called Zoho. So,
Oh, we use the same.
oh, awesome. A lot of firms, I think, get stuck into these legal products
Hmm.
and they don't do as much as the real enterprise level tracking. That's something like Zoho, or before Zoho, we used a Mac only one called Daylight, which worked well until like 20 people, but then kind of stopped scaling. Um, but like Zoho, I mean, I can't
Zoho's
imagine
amazing.
growing it, right? They have all these modules that do everything you could imagine, and it all talks to itself. And it's in a programming language that you can hire as many consultants as you need all around the world, where like you say, I want this report run, or I want this to do this, and like 2 days later, it works. So
Yeah.
we love having that enterprise wide CRM. And then the biggest thing is just figuring out what actually moves the needle. So, um, like one of the things for like probate that we know is if the initial petition isn't filed within 30 days, that client's going to be having a bad experience. All of a sudden, we used to tell ourselves, oh, Joe's a bad client. But then whenever we looked at it, like what are the similarities on every Joe that we had? It was like, well,
Yeah.
heck, we didn't get the petition filed for 45 days or 60 days. So now instead of having this like certain time period, we own the case for twice as long. Or
Hmm.
I think a lot of firms, as they scale, they have a problem with stuff that like falls through the cracks. And so you just need to figure out which milestone is important to you and your system. So, like for us, if somebody hires us, signs the engagement agreement, and hasn't signed their estate plan within 21 days, all kinds of bells and whistles go off. Every day I'm getting a text and an email about those people because I want to know why. And my team needs to be held accountable on that.
Yeah.
And you start tracking those big tasks or those big milestones rather than like the whole pipeline. You know, so like in Zoho, you can have these pipelines that have every task that people can knock off. You can even do time tracking through it if you want to.
Yeah.
But what I found is there's probably like 3 tasks per kind of business line that if you pick them, you track them, and you're just really diligent with those or what winning looks like, it's a lot better. Like I said, you know, if you're not signing your estate plan within 21 days, go in with curiosity, not anger, right? Like you're not like, why the heck didn't this get done? You're
Yeah.
like, hey, I noticed that Joe's off track here. Did he take a vacation out of the country? Is he having trouble picking who his trustee is going to be? Like, go in trying to fix the problem, and then all of a sudden the team doesn't get as scared, right? The team is like, okay, like, let's just be solution oriented. How do we make sure that we're going to get these people on track, knowing that it's not carved in stone? We can fix stuff later. You know, if the best trustee right now is the son, let's start with the son. And then whenever they feel like, you know, a professional trustee might work, we can always amend this thing later. Like,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah. We do the same stuff that you're saying. Especially for probate estate planning, those different markers, right? We have projects set up, use projects.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We have all our templates all built out there, and yeah, it's red alert, right? But we pay bonuses when they file on time, when they hit those for probate. Yeah, estate planning, we say 30 days for estate planning. I love the 21 days. I should get that in.
It's you'll find that whatever you start with, you can always cut it down, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
3 days, and you'll be like, hey guys, you guys are crushing it here. And then, like, so we do a similar thing with pay. We can talk about it. I'm trying to get away from it a little bit as we grow, because it actually makes hiring harder. But for like the last 10 years, most of our staff has had at least 30% of their pay be incentive or bonus with a lower base.
Mm-hmm.
In the current hiring market, people can't really do the math, or they don't believe they're going to pay out the bonuses. And so we've actually kind of started to get away from that a little bit. And
Well, what do you think about this? Because I've seen it with sales jobs before, and they did this at Postcard Mania. They would give you a salary and low bonus, right? And then they're like, hey, when you're ready, you can go to commission only, and you'll make X amount more, right? So you could almost maybe do something similar like that. Have a little bit of a higher salary that people are interested in. They sign on and like track what their bonus would be. Like, hey, do you want to switch it? You want to lower your salary and get bonuses?
I think that's a really good idea, because like that's one of the things that we've struggled with is, you know, you go to whatever platform you put your job ads out on or whatever, and you're competing against people that are saying, I'm going to bring a para on at 60 grand a year. Well, my average para is making 80 grand a year, but their base was like 50. And so now all the people that are applying for your 50K job are 1 year experience or fresh out of school, or they're coming from wherever. But you're getting the 50K people rather than the 60 or 80K people, because they're not even seeing your stuff. Or even if they do see your stuff, a lot of times I think that as an employee, before you build that trust and relationship with your employer, you're worried about the bait and switch, because so many crappy companies do that, where they're like, oh, I think you're going to come in and make 120. And then all of a sudden you're trying to figure out how to pay bills at 60, right? Like, but I love that, where you'd be able to come in and say, hey, we got 2 paths here. You're a hunter. We got this path. You want to grind? We got this path.
Yeah. Yeah. And you start putting out the ad for 65 or 70, whatever the number is, right? That would attract good talent, because they can search by filters, right? When they're looking for jobs, right? So if your base is at 50, they might not even you might not even show up. Yeah. You didn't even see it. So yeah, you bring them in like, hey, you can start out here and then keep track of what your bonus would be, right? I can guarantee you would make more.
Like I'll bring that to my HR person. One of the things that has been huge for my lack of stress in the business as we've grown, as people grow, they always think that your job gets more stressful. It doesn't. It gets way easier. Like, I mean, the problems that I have today versus 5 years ago, 10 years ago are like nothing. A big part of that is I purposely try and pay above like salary.com or,
same
Indeed type stuff. Because I'm not going to try and say, let's fight over 5K, right? Like there are a lot of people out there that are like trying to just negotiate somebody down like 5K. You're like, this isn't even $400 a month. Like, why are we fighting over this? It's 1 billable hour. Like, come on now.
Yeah. I've hired a decent amount of people where I've liked them a lot. I'm like, hey, this person's going to be really good, right? I just know from the get-go they're going to be really good. I'm like, hey, what do you want to make? And they're like 70, whatever, right? Whatever they say, 70. I come back, I'm like, look, I think you're worth more. I'm going to pay you I want to offer you 75. And that like sets the tone, right? Rather than the reverse, right? Because in either direction, it doesn't make that much of a difference for me,
Oh yeah,
right? Right? It's like, okay, 5,000 more
Roll different.
above or 5,000 below, it doesn't mean shit. But to them, it's a real big difference either way. You negotiate down, you lower their value, negotiate up, you're like pumping them up,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy named Joey Coleman. Years ago, he wrote a book, How to Never Lose a Customer. And about a year ago, maybe two now, he wrote a book, How to Never Lose an Employee. And so his whole thing is like, bring somebody on board, treat it like they do for the like college draft, treat it like they do for like whenever you go play ball. I mean, you have whining and dining and celebrations, and you're making this person feel like a rock star. Whenever people come in, I mean, their first day of work, we got everything laid out, everything for onboarding. Like building that HR as you scale is huge, but also like having that touch where, what's your favorite drink? I don't like coffee. I like energy drinks. If I started at a place and they got my favorite flavor of energy drink sitting on my desk, ice cold that first day, like, hey, this ain't so bad. I got a sweet tooth for sweet tarts. If they got a roll of sweet tarts sitting there with that thing, it's going to be a good day, right?
Yeah.
Like, those
I
little
love that. I love that.
big difference in what I got $5 into it, that you feel like a real person. Where how many places have you like talked to somebody and they're like, I'm gonna put them on trial for the first 90 days. They gotta every 30 days we're gonna check in and see if they still got a job. Like that person will stick around. Like
Right. Yeah, man, you're totally right. It's a good, yeah, it's good. Yeah, I need an HR person because I'm doing that myself now, but I got too many hats myself
yeah.
right now.
After COVID, we found that having a hiring manager was like key, just because we still want to make you jump through all the hurdles to make sure you're the right hire, but we got to do it faster. So we took what was like a 2-week hiring funnel, and we do it in a couple days now. And that's just because,
So how do you do it?
yeah. So for us, you have whatever ad you have out there. That ad targets you to do something that's not just apply through like Indeed. You put something on Indeed, you'll have 1,000 applicants for every
Yeah.
job you post, and most of them didn't read the thing or follow instructions. Like any of those sites that say like apply here, apply now, like we're going to put where you need to change the media channel. So instead of just being able to click that and do it all inside that hiring app, we're going to make you actually send an email, and we're going to make you do something stupid like spell your name backwards or whatever. And that's part of making sure. I know people hate that, but you
I
got to
love
have
it.
people that are nuanced enough or care enough about your place to actually like write a cover letter. Like I know right now that it's not in style to write a cover letter, but we're going to make you answer some questions about the role. We're going to make you do stuff that's like a computer test. We've made the mistake before of hiring people that worked at law firms for their whole career, and all of a sudden they don't know how to like close a window, and you're like, oh my god. So we're
Yeah,
going to
we've
learn
had
that
that.
kind of stuff. We do Colby testing on everybody. So like what drives you as far as information processing? Like, are you a high fact finder, a low fact finder? Are you a quick start? Do you have high follow through? Whenever you learn, do you need to have tangible stuff, or can you do it kind of abstract? And each role we none of that is like a disqualifier, but it just helps us know how you're going to fit in with the team and how you're going to fit in with that role. And then we do what's called print, which is there's a bunch of different options. These are just the two we use that helps understand what are your motivators. So for me, print's like a 2-digit number. Colby's a 4-digit number. Like my 2-digit number says something that's really terrifying about me. One of the things that it says is, if you come and say, hey, Josh, do you need help with that? Often what I will hear is, Josh, you can't do this. And that's a really important thing to know about yourself and know about your team.
Yeah.
Want people that have this kind of sequence of numbers, kind of being that independence and stuff like that. But I want to make sure that I know that about them so that they're not getting into like behaviors that are kind of toxic or what they call shadow behaviors. Because if I'm stressed and you come ask me, hey, do you need help? And I hear that as you suck, you can't do it. That's going to change our conversation a lot. But if you know that, how can you phrase that different? You can be like, hey, man, looks like you're crushing this. I know you got this. Is there anything I can do to help support you? Leave it
Yeah.
different there, right? Um, a lot of it, like on my team, because I mean, elder law is almost like social work, right? Like most of the in person conversations are helping people through, like, how do I place my parent? How do I place my spouse? How do I get through some of this? And so we hire a lot of people that have that very much like soft skill, want to be liked kind of background.
Yeah.
And then we have to make sure that we're giving them feedback in the way that doesn't just make them cry in their car at the end of the day, right? You get that kind of more touchy feely person, makes for a great elder law employee, but you got to make sure that you're not managing that or giving feedback in a way that makes that person feel unappreciated. And I want to be clear, like, this isn't how you meant to say it,
Right. 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 Yeah. Totally.
but it's like
So
focus on that.
yeah. Yeah. That's smart. It's smart management
Yeah, you get a good
processes.
hiring manager, they do all this stuff for you, man. It's one of the best roles. My actual COO now started as my hiring manager. And then we did a bunch of internal kind of career pathing, and um, she found her replacement and moved on up. And I mean, hiring manager is key to scale because you get out of
Yeah.
that process and turn into the people problem.
Right. Right. Yeah. I definitely am in that process problem right now. So how long from putting an ad out to hiring are you guys generally?
This is going to sound flippant, but right now we don't really we have certain ads that run all the time, because if you don't run them all the time, your staff can't handle the stress, right? So your staff knows whenever your law firm goes and puts an ad out for a paralegal or a salesperson or an attorney, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't have those ads running all the time, if somebody's like just got some kind of not great performance review and
And
the
then you
next
got an ad
day
out there.
their role is on Indeed, like, now you got a big problem. Because even if they like come off of a performance improvement plan, even if they get back on track, I think that there's some trust betrayal type stuff there, and that might just be my own trauma.
No, dude, I've thought the same thing. I've thought the same thing.
So we have
Yeah.
a couple roles like paralegal, front desk, associate, that are just always posted. And so it's hard for me to answer that question, but the flippant answer
Yeah.
is the hiring manager's job is to keep relationships up, so that even if we aren't actively recruiting for that role and something comes through, she's staying in touch with them and she's touching
Mhm.
base with them every couple months. So we just had like an opportunity for two new attorneys to jump on the team. And both those roles, one was filled in less than 10 days, one was filled in 4. And so,
Mhm.
like, that's pretty cool. That allows you to be able to keep the consistency, because so often in our past, we didn't fire people. And most people are in this spot, whether they want to admit to it or not, is you'll be in your leadership meeting, even if it's just you and your wife, you're sitting there and you're saying, well, I know Becky's got to go, but who's going to do the work?
Yeah.
And how long are you going to deal with bad behavior, toxic behavior, knowing that she's the wrong person because you and your wife or your leadership team or whoever feel like, well, if we fire her, Ashley's got to do it. Like, and she's over there like, I'm already working 8-hour days. I'm already working 10-hour days. I can't go do her job too. Um, and I say this just because I've been in that spot so many times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so many times you've let somebody that you should have fired year ago be on a PIP and then get better, and then be on a PIP and then get better. especially with salespeople. I mean, our salespeople are some of the highest paid people in our firm, but man, they're held to a standard that the rest of the team ain't. You end up with a bad month, you better not do it twice or you ain't going to be here.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the way it works. We're doing almost $1 million a month right now. You don't realize those fluctuations from a salesperson is the difference between 30% profitability and barely breaking even or losing money. And so
Hmm.
you got to make those hiring and firing decisions quick on that team, where like a paralegal, you can leave some grace, right? If the thing gets signed on day 24 instead of day 21, nobody's losing their job.
Right.
And that's kind of the risk reward of why those positions get paid more, is there's a higher level of risk there.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But like, if imagine that you had, so right now we have 5 salespeople. At 5, you have coverage, you have the ability to swap. But for a long time, we only had 2. We had 2 offices and 2 salespeople. I'm talking about bad planning. Like, if one of them starts dropping below par, you really don't have the coverage to just get rid of them. You got to try and coach them up. And then you see the difference between like a 60% conversion rate and a 70% conversion rate is the difference between $1 million a year. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you're like, I should have fired that person a year ago. But you liked him. He was doing okay. He was doing 60%. Like, you're like, who's going to do this job? If I fire him, I got to go do all these like sits. Like, and so that's really one of the things that whenever people talk about like some of the scaling problems that you run into, it's, you got to have that coverage. You got to have that flexibility, the ability to hold people accountable and swap people in and out if it's not working. And again, the people that are getting swapped out, no, it's not a surprise to them. My sales team sees their numbers every day. They know I got to push. I got to go do some better follow-up. I need to go watch my game tape and see what happened in those 2 sits today that didn't close. Like, and again, if they don't put that effort in, they probably just aren't the right person for here.
Right. Right.
And they'll go find I had a great salesperson that, man, I didn't fire him for over a year, and I should have. Finally fire him. He knew it was coming. He felt worried every week that it was coming. Ended up helping him with a letter of recommendation, go get a B2B job instead of a B2C job. He's so happy. He was literally out there on the golf course selling B2B deals, living his best life. And he's really good at it. He just wasn't good with B2C.
Yeah. Yeah. Are all 5 non-attorneys?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many consults are they doing in a day?
4.
Each? Okay, so 4 consults a day.
So we find that whether it's an attorney, a non-attorney salesperson, whatever, it's really hard for people to have the deep conversation they need to convert well and then reset. So sometimes we'll allow them to do 5 if we start booking out too far, but we know that that will burn them out. They'll be really happy whenever they first get their like couple paychecks, but after a month of 5, they'll be dead.
Yeah.
They become almost dismissive where they start burning leads. Like, you walk into it and the client or the potential client says, I'm not ready to make a decision today. We're just here gathering information. And if you only got 4 a day, the response is, well, Joe, I would never expect you to make a decision this big without finding out everything you know. What factors are you considering that I can help clarify for you so that you can make that decision educated? Where if you're on your 5th one and you've been doing 5 for a whole week straight, you're like, okay, Joe, call me whenever you get the decision.
Right. Yeah. What's the closing?
Not pay money. Like,
yeah. Right now, Ashley is doing 5 to 6 consults a day. Stephanie does more than that she does just probate consults right now.
Well, so probate's way different. Probate, we could do 10 in a day. That's not level of engagement for us, but we do no more
Right.
than probate. So
So do we. Yeah.
there's a big difference between writing a $7,000 to $14,000 check, all paid up front, versus saying, "Yeah, I'll hire you if I don't got to pay anything today, and I don't have to pay you until the estate money is available." Like, so we can usually get about half an hour per each probate consult.
Same. That's what we put set aside. Yeah.
For Medicaid, VA benefits, or even pre-planning a state, we book 90 minutes, and they don't take that long. But what we never want to do is rush the close. So say that you know that it takes normally 45 minutes and then 15 minutes to get everything wrapped up. Well, if you put it for an hour and it takes 50 minutes or 55 minutes, now you're rushing that close and you ain't closing. Or if you are closing, it feels clunky, it feels rushed. The people just are about to write you a big check and you're making them feel like time matters. And
Yeah.
so for us, even though we tell the client it's an hour, we book 90 minutes on their calendars just to make sure. And we only work 35 hours a week. I mean, we only work 7 hours a day. So
No
that's
shit.
what we have 4. Yeah. That was,
Wow.
but whenever my mom started the firm, she just, I don't know, she only wanted 7-hour days and it's just stuck around with us. So we all close 12 to 1 for lunch. Everybody takes lunch together. It still feels like a lot smaller firm, even though we got 40 plus people.
40 plus. Yeah. What is the close percentage that you hold them to?
In order to keep your job at 65%.
Okay.
So that number isn't transferable between firms like what we all think it is, though, because intake plays such an important role in that. So for us, we count that as you saw a Facebook ad, intake said, "Do you live in Georgia?" You said yes. We booked you with a salesperson.
It's a little rough.
You talk to other people and they try and say, "Well, I got 100% close rate," after the person went through a webinar, had an initial sit with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, the second window at Wendy's has 100% close rate too, but the sale was done at the little microphone box, right?
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. So what does your intake team screen them at all? No. So someone calls in.
No, we won't. If we start booking out more than 2 weekends, then we change what intake screens. We know that our no-show and our close rate both go bad if we book over 2 weekends. So like if you call in today, it's Tuesday. I don't get you in next Tuesday, but you're in the Tuesday after, I'm going to start to have less people show up. So remember how we talked about there's some motivating event that starts to cool off in our experience if you go 2 weekends before the first appointment. Now, I know Alexis Neely and a bunch of people that are successful purposely booking stuff out, but then you need to be really, really intentional about what you're sending them before the appointment. My model is get you in as quick as possible and let's just talk.
Yeah, we have the same viewpoint.
But show up rate will drop down to where like 10 to 15% of people ain't showing up to the appointment or they're rescheduling, no matter how many texts or whatever, if it goes over 2 weekends for us. And we notice that our conversion rate will start to drop a good 10 to 20% on top of that no-show rate. And so total like retain drops almost 30% if you go over 2 weekends.
Yeah.
And so
what about financially qualifying people?
I don't think that makes as much sense as people think it does. So like what we do, let's say that you come in for your mom. Your mom's the one that you're coming in and talking about. Do I care if she's broke if you're going to pay for it? No.
Right.
You're trying to buy less burden on you. So you'll spend a couple grand on it, even if she's got nothing. The other problem is you get a lot of people that could be higher net worth that just don't see the value in it. Right. So you start getting somebody that has over $3 million. it sounds like, oh, this should be a home run. We're only charging them $7,000. This should be like pennies for them. And man, some of those clients are the ones that are like, well, I don't understand why I need a trust.
Yeah, I know. You definitely get
In
that.
3 different states. Like, I don't know how to explain this to you any better. We hire a lot of people. This is one of the reasons we don't charge for consults. We hire a lot of people that are really just living on Social Security, have a house, and maybe 50 or 100 grand. And to protect that house, they'll pay us $5,000. And so we can do an asset protection trust for the home, do the deed transfer, give them the powers of attorney and stuff, and still make a good profit margin by helping those people. And those are the ones that are going to sing your praises from the rooftops, because since they have less, preserving it is more important. Think about if you're,
Yeah.
disparaging, but like, think about if you're kind of broke, you're living on Social Security, you got less than 10 grand in your savings, and you got a paid off house. But you think that one of your sons might have to move in there because he ain't doing real great either. You're going to do everything in your power to make sure that the hospitals, the nursing home, the creditors don't have a way to go towards that house. Or let's say that you are supporting a kid that already lives with you. Think about it from that perspective. You know that your other 3 kids hate that one at some degree. How are you going to make sure that little Johnny, the apple of your eye, gets to stay there? Well, you put it in either an RLT or an APT, make it so that he's, instead of doing like a life estate or something like that, you just make it so that he has a right to stay there. And now all of a sudden it doesn't count against them if they're on disability or Medicaid or anything like that. You protected it for the parents. And again, this is why you have to really take those first couple of minutes to focus on what
On the
is
why.
the
What's
they see.
yeah.
The problem, I mean, nobody calls in is like, I think I'm broke, I don't want to do this. It's all about value. And I would say most people that run people through seminars before they talk to them, or try and say, how much money do you got before I talk to you, aren't treating the people like people. I mean, how many financial advisor ads do you see? Like, if you have more than $2 million, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
They probably got somebody to help them get to 2 million that's already built that relationship. Like,
Right.
that's a bad hypothesis.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. I'm liking what you're telling me here, because we recently put in financial quals on the intake line, and you got me rethinking it. We didn't do it before.
It might still be worth doing it, because your conversion rate is going to be higher with financial quals. It will be.
Right. But we're in the process right now. We're in the process right now of building our sales team. Yeah. Like we got to build it. We don't have a sales team right now, right? Like you do. Your guys are dedicated to sales. We don't have that. And so I'm looking at hiring 2 people right now. I moved Stephanie over there. She was our COO. She's really good at sales, super money motivated. So I'll essentially have 3 people in the very near future, full time doing it. Yeah.
So then all of a sudden you start getting where it makes sense to even pull Stephanie back out, have her really in that ops role, and then you're going to bring in like a real salesperson that's going to do it. And you might start with 1. And like you said, 1 can do 20 cents a week as a breeze. Then all of a sudden, that's really starting to pay for itself. It's covering them. It's making you more profitable, because now you can focus on the attorney hours and the para hours, the stuff that they really need to do. Then you get better service, and it just kind of like cycles. Like, that's why I say it's easier as you get bigger. And everybody always argues with me on this, but it's just, you get economies of scale. You just resources. Think about like, even with you, if you didn't come from like the postcard arena and somebody was like, hey, I need to throw $40,000 a month at postcards, you're going to have some trepidation. As you get bigger, it's like, okay, well, we spend $150,000 a month on advertising. That isn't the same kind of problem of scale,
Right.
It's not like our budget was 10 and you're asking me to spend 40. It's like, okay, well, what do we allocate for that? Mm-hmm. Things like TV commercials, billboards, stuff like that. Everybody on every Facebook group ever will tell you it's a waste of money. It's not. It just depends on timing and size.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm able to be the biggest in our state, volume wise, is because I'm willing to go and spend money on marketing. It all comes from like years ago. I went to a Tony Robbins event, and watching that guy live is masterful. If you ever get the opportunity,
I've heard that. I've heard that. Yeah.
don't just pay attention to what he's saying. Pay attention to what him and his team are doing. Unleash the Power Within is like the one where you walk on ashes or coals or whatever, and it's like a 3-day event. The first day, really cool. You walk on fire. The second day is probably the most transformational day I've ever had in my life. It made walking on coals seem like easy breezy. But pay attention to what him and his team are doing. I went and saw it at the United Center in Chicago. 10,000 people. And whenever that guy sells from the stage and makes his offer, he's got people lined up at tables on all floors of that arena, like 15, 20 people deep, begging to pay this guy 25 grand.
Wow.
And so as a business owner, like not just going for like the personal development, but also going and looking, how are these people selling, marketing, preparing the hook, preparing the offer, and then thinking about, is Tony Robbins the best personal development person in the world? Absolutely not. I'm sure you could find people that work way better with different individuals. He's the best marketer for it, though. That's the thing that really clicked for me is no matter how great an attorney you are, no matter how great your legal mind does to create these really cool trusts that have all kinds of flexibility and asset protection, if you can't get people to know about them, you can't sell anything.
Yeah, it's like they don't exist.
And that's really where it comes from. And I think that's where like the ego is whenever you're an attorney, it's kind of this idea of like doctrine of self-sacrifice. You want to help people. You don't want to scalp them. You think you're doing a good job by charging them less than you should because it made it a good deal for them. But then you can't go market, you can't go educate, and you can't offer the aftercare support. So like for us, we don't have any membership programs. I'm really open to it. If anybody has a really solid one, I'm all
I
ears.
know. Same.
I've flown around the country to 12 different firms and talked to probably 50 different firms about it. And I've never found one that really, really made sense and had value to the point.
Yeah, we have one, but I don't think it's that great. It's like,
Yeah. So
yeah.
Like whenever you look at the people that buy law firms, often whenever you really dig deep into it, you find the maintenance program is a liability and not an asset, because in order to get the money, we often have to overpromise what we're going to do. So I've seen like a couple different styles. Like some are monthly payments, some are annual of like a couple grand, some are annual of like $400. I mean, they're all different flavors, but again, it's hard whenever your average case value is over $5,000 even to say, is it easier to go get this many X new clients in what we really do? Or do we start doing like event planning work where we're going to invite 100 people to dinner and stuff like that? Like it's just a different company.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have, so my idea with Stephanie was to have her be kind of like the chief revenue officer, right? And overseeing all the sales and, you know, initially doing the training and monitoring the calls and all that. Do you have someone that's in that role?
I've tried that role 3 times and it's never worked.
Okay. For what reason?
I have it broken out between a sales director and a marketing director right now, with intake under the marketing, but it's gone back and forth between sales. You can argue it either way. I think the CRO or the chief revenue officer, in the way that I imagine it, is that person's over lead gen and conversion, everything pre-production in my mind.
Yeah. So
that way the goal or the hope is that there's no like finger pointing of like, oh, leads are down, leads are crap, sales conversions down. Like I think we're trying to get away from that by like buying that role. I've tried it where people that come from home services, because that's a really popular role in home services. So like with like plumbing, HVAC, stuff like that, roofs, windows. And they sell stuff that has a high ticket value. And so I thought that would be a good strategy. And it's just too much accountability and too much pressure on one person, so that whenever you have to get rid of that person, if it didn't work, the recovery period is extreme.
Yeah.
So, think about like a billboard contract that you're going to sign for 2 years. Your new CRO comes in and says, Joe, we got to do this. My hypothesis is X. And you give them, a approval to do that. I mean, you got a year after you fired them that you're going to be on the hook for these things. And then the next person that comes into that role is kind of disabled from the point of they got all these contracts that they're already tied to.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I'm always a little bit fearful without the proven track record. So like if I had a good marketing person, I had a good salesperson, like director level, and they really showed performance in that area, they trained somebody to come up underneath them, and then they grew on the other side. So whether it was sales or marketing, I'd feel more confident. But that's probably just my own scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
I've had, again, only a sample size of like 3 that haven't worked. And in the grand scheme of things, that's a horrible sample size, right? So again, going back to Tony Robbins, he's going to say, how many things have you tried? Everybody says everything. It's like, well, name 5. I can only name 3, but those 3 were painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've just kind of stuck right now with a like sales director and a marketing director. Each one of them has about 7 people underneath them that they manage. And that tends to work pretty well at the size we're at. I think as we go to the next size, we'll need more. But like last year, November of 23, I hired a CRO that would have made about $300,000 as like total comp. And it just didn't work. We brought him in just on the sales side, and we probably overhired from the perspective that we weren't quite ready for it. We didn't have the foundation. And I think that's the problem that you run into a lot whenever you get those like, higher 6-figure, 200 plus marketing people. They aren't used to the in the weeds tactical pushing out things, because they've been removed from it usually for a couple of years by the time they get there. And so whenever you go talk to a $200,000 marketing director and you're like, I need you to look at this copy, they're like, we don't hire copywriters. Like,
they need to be able to do everything below them.
Yeah. And,
to really debug and handle things. They need
to at least like
they
manage the funnel, at least like know, like you can look at my social media right now and it sucks. That's not fair. They're doing a better job than we've ever done before. But like, they put videos up that don't have subtitles. Well, 70% of people don't
listen to
videos with audio on.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to clip this and it's just me with no subtitles talking, nobody's hearing that.
You're gone in half a second.
And so that kind of stuff, they kind of get removed from. And we have a great marketing team. We do a lot of like video testimonials and stuff in-house. This year, we're going to launch a testimonials page that will have over 75 recorded videos of clients of actual testimonials. And
I love that.
Pet project over the last year is getting those people committed and done. It's way harder to get people to commit to video testimonials than I ever thought. I don't like being on camera. Everybody will give you good reviews, but nobody wants to be on video. And
we haven't done that. It's something that I want to do.
But like imagine that you come to like my page and I can target with a couple keywords 20 videos of people that are similarly situated to your story, and I can, drip campaign those on you if you don't retain. Now you just got to admit you don't like me. Like,
yeah.
authority wise, you can't say, I don't think this is going to work. I just showed you 75 people that it worked for. Like, they're actual live people. It's not, fake reviews or Yelp or whatever. I mean, you've seen them, you've heard their story. And
Right.
those have been some super impactful marketing campaigns for us.
God, I love that. What channels are you marketing on right now?
Oh, I apologize. We're getting off a little bit. You're talking about Stephanie and your CRO.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. It got me thinking.
Anything that has a positive ROI, man, we still haven't figured out the marketing well. I look at a lot of, you look at like ClickFunnels, like Russell Brunson stuff, and they'll run the same ad for years just on repeat. I see other firms. There's a firm that's in our state called Smith Barron. They're out of Savannah. They just expanded a little bit. The guy's been running the same freaking static ad for 4 or 5 years. I wish I could see the back end of whether or not it's working for him. I mean, it clearly has to be because he keeps doing it.
I mean, our postcard has been the same for 3 years, same design.
And so, like, that's one of the things that I want to figure out how we crack this year is how do we have that kind of evergreen ad where right now we're still running so much new content. We do like A/B test it and stuff like that, but we're not at that stage yet where it's like really we got the secret sauce, so to speak. So
yeah,
we're still in that spaghetti game. Throw it out there, try and care about the people, see if it sticks.
Are you running Google ads?
Yeah. A bunch of Google ads, bunch of Facebook ads. We run TV commercials, billboards, ran some mailers after we saw your post on like your Facebook group. Those didn't go out to the beginning of January, so I don't have any data back yet. But
yeah,
I don't like doing presentations, but like we're back doing presentations. I think the ROI on presentations and webinars for us isn't scalable. And so
what about doing, I talked to a guy earlier today doing, this is his, he's from Case Fuel. Anyway, Andrew Stickle, Andrew Zimmer referred me over to him. It sounds pretty interesting. He, you record a webinar, right? They run Facebook ads on it. People go and they almost think it's live, but it's not. Like they block a time to yeah. Well, I don't even think it's moderated.
Okay.
I didn't get deep into the weeds about it with how to do that exactly, but there's like, okay, the next showing is at 4 o'clock, right? And the one after that's at 11 a.m. tomorrow, and the next one's at 7 p.m. tomorrow. And so they pick one, they attend it, and then he's got a call center down in South America, right? And so as soon as someone's done watching the webinar or they click out of it, they're calling them up and trying to get them booked for a consult right then and there. And so that kind of just runs just on repeat.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds kind of interesting, kind of scalable, right? You just film a webinar recorded, and then what do you think?
For me, marketing is all testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, totally.
The outline of that could absolutely be a $10 million idea, or with the wrong accent, with the wrong phrasing, with the wrong hook, the wrong call to action, or the wrong offer, you could waste $100,000 in advertising real quick.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's unfortunately, I think, especially estate planning attorneys, we focus so much on tactics that we forget about strategy. And so, where I'm at for this year is really focusing more back on what's the strategy. And then once we get a strategy that works well, we can go figure out all the tactics.
Yeah.
If you really talk to like Russell Brunson type people, like the ClickFunnels crowd, that's a bunch of what they do. And they'll tell you that the number one converting lead off of that is the people that don't show up for the webinar. The people that show up for your webinar are going to be a lot more likely to be DIYers unless you really have that webinar structured well. Remember, there's a couple things you can do from the stage or from a webinar. You can entertain, you can educate, or you can sell. most estate planners mess up and try and educate.
Yeah.
We assume if we do that, they'll be wowed by how awesome we are and come pay us money. If you're trying to entertain, there's no real money play there. And so then you got to figure out how you're going to sell. And if you go work with somebody that helps give you a good webinar and it's really designed to sell, and you got that strategy right, where you got the right open, you got the right identification of the problem, you got the right solution, and you got the right close, I don't know that calling them immediately is like as big of a differentiator as what we think it is.
That's a good point.
Especially for a lot of the people that are watching a webinar, they're going to be high fact finders. They're going to want to process that. And so if they just sat through a 30-minute or an hour-long webinar, are they saying yes, but like in the Chris Voss FBI negotiator, just saying yes to get you off the phone? And then you're going to have a horrible show-up rate for whatever that next step is?
Yeah.
I mean, those are just the things that come to my mind because I get really cynical on marketing.
No, it's good. Those are really good points. I hadn't thought of them, so I'm glad you brought it up. It makes sense.
But the number one problem I see with most like estate planning webinars and seminars, and we did this too for years, is trying to educate.
Yeah. You just got me thinking about it because we're about to start doing, we're building out a space here. We got added a little bit to our square footage, and we're building out to be a seminar space.
I want to be clear, every tactic works if you have the right strategy. So,
right.
Up in Pittsburgh, near like the Zimmers, there's a guy who literally closed down his firm and just does group stuff. That's all he does right now. And he sells to a group and he is crushing it. That's not the business I want to be in because it's going to be reflective of the attorney, right? But for him, you got Paul, which I think may have been on your show already.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of people I know's marketing for their like in-person seminars and really, really crushed it. It's always like a little bit of figuring out how to get people there, the right people, stuff like that. And this is why I say, like, any tactic will work, but if the strategy's right, you're set.
Yeah.
For us, whenever we were trying to do like the in-person seminars, and especially whenever we were getting started, I mean, one year I did 70. It was just too many, right?
Yeah.
We're doing like over one a week. That was a bad plan. And that's how I grew the business, is just getting out there. But that's all Josh. And then all the people want to come see Josh. And I don't want to be in that business. I don't want to go do a bunch of presentations and then have to do a bunch of sales calls, because whenever you try and sell from the stage, the person wants to sign up with you. And then a lot of places where like we would speak, they wouldn't let you close. Like they wouldn't let you sell from the stage. So if you go speak at a senior center or even like a bunch of libraries and stuff like that, a lot of them have different rules about what you can do as far as like even collecting names, let alone collecting money. And so
how about that? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like those are the kind of things that they absolutely work, but they don't work at a $12 million firm.
Right.
At 2 to 5, it stops working as well as some other options. But like above 5, now all of a sudden you have to empower your associates to go be that, or you have to get your marketers out there doing it. Do your non-attorney marketers close the same from the stage? I think they can, but now all of a sudden are they getting poached? So like, let's say that we're in the same city and I find out that you got a non-attorney marketer that you're paying 60 grand that's bringing you in $1 million a year. I'll go pay her 100.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
And so these are the problems that we've run into just over the years of trying to figure out how to do this. Or you get your associate to be the one that's doing the presentations. And then all of a sudden they sit down with you with an unrealistic ask and they're like, Joe, you don't understand. I brought in, $2.5 million worth of business, not realizing that it was all done by paralegals and you did all the marketing to fill the seminar and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, I want at least 20% of that. Like, well, that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. What has been like, where's your main lead source right now?
Percentage wise, the third that always comes from past clients is always our highest. And then it kind of breaks down over that. We do a lot with YouTube, Facebook ads, things like that. And what we found is the cost to get them to the seminar versus the cost to get them in the consult room is about the same. And so
Is that right?
I'd rather have them in the consult room than sitting in dinner than a buying.
I agree.
And so that's why
Yeah.
we've gone away from like the seminar stuff. We've never tried webinars. We've always done like the live seminar stuff. And so I don't want to speak out of turn on that. I think like Pamela Garrett out of Colorado just posted up with like where she was crushing it with an in-person dinner seminar, right? Again, that works really well for her. For us, I'm just trying to focus on what's the tracking through Zoho of like the cost of acquisition. So we have a HubSpot that's integrated with Zoho. And through that, we can really do almost end-to-end tracking of where the dollars go out versus where come back.
You have to use HubSpot for that?
I don't think we have to. We do. I think we could do it inside Zoho, but whenever we first built Zoho, we kind of had a bad structure. And so especially like whenever you have multiple parties, like the kids, the parents, the grandparents, the stuff like that, some of that gets a little wonky for the way that we structured it. And so as a kind of Band-Aid, HubSpot made that simpler for us.
Okay. Yeah, we kind of still have that issue.
Because it's like if you come in and you hire me for your dad, HubSpot can tell me I marketed to you, you saw this many things, this cost me X, you paid me Y. Zoho, the way I understand it, and I could be way wrong, I'm not an IT guy by any chance, has a problem connecting your dad's name to that you part.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe you're right. I'll have to talk to our developer about it. We just started, I guess Google reached out to us recently, a few weeks ago, because we've increased our budget, and all of a sudden now they're like, hey, we want to talk with you. And we've had these calls before, but they're usually some guy in India who's just like, oh yeah, it's just nothing really. And then so our marketing guy, I forwarded an email and he's like, oh, I'll talk with him, but if you really want me to. And we just thought it was going to be another junk call, but ended up being like 4 guys up in New York at a board table dedicated to us and 5 others, and that's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys
he was
essays or anything or no?
With a little bit, yeah. Yep.
So like we haven't done that except for just dabbling. We had a third-party vendor doing it. I get like shiny object syndrome with marketing. And so it's really helpful for me to really go back and look at data. So I will talk your ear off about geofencing. I think geofencing sounds like the end all be all in marketing. It's not worked out as well as I feel like it should have. I feel like if I geofence the ER, assisted livings, the cemetery, and like geriatric care doctors, I should crush. And that has not been the way that the hypothesis has come to fruition. Like,
yeah.
But it's a constant movement too. I mean, I think like over the last couple of weeks, the algorithm has changed a little bit with like the whole TikTok thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out with Instagram and YouTube and Facebook stuff. Google's still consistent with us, but I mean, if you look at November and December of last year, because we were heavy on some of that Google stuff and even the Facebook ads, cost of acquisition raised higher than I feel comfortable with. So our normal cost of acquisition is sub $500. And over November and December, our cost of acquisition climbed to over $1,200.
Ooh.
So that starts to be where I start getting more and more worried. But it's also kind of this dumb coincidental thing that might be in my head, where as soon as we start hitting $1 million a month, COA raises. And it's just a tier we got to break through. But that's where, I can do $875 a month all year long and be at $500. But if I want that last, 125, all of a sudden it's like cost of acquisition is $1,000. And that's where we struggle. That's probably our biggest thing. And what we're going to focus on this year is, I wouldn't call it consistency, but I would call it consistent and cost of acquisition with growth.
Yeah. 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 Smart to look at it like that. To back up quite a bit, when you first started with your mom, is she still with the firm?
She's
just out of curiosity. Yeah.
She's technically still here, but we found that she couldn't retire part-time without getting sucked back in.
Sure.
All of a sudden it was like she would say she would work 2 days a week, and then we'd have her 4.
Yeah.
And then she would want to travel. And whenever she would go on these like long trips for like a month, it was just always clunky. And so last year, she's been kind of semi-retired for 2 years, but last year was a clean cut. We just picked a date and said, this is it.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. What was the I guess who did you hire? Like what positions did you hire? Kind of what sequence? Like you're at 5 salespeople right now. Kind of at what point did you get there? Like what was that path for you?
Clunky, it's kind of what breaks next in the firm is always what you focus on. So
yeah,
at all different sizes, something's breaking. Like you could get your production processes perfect to do 40 clients a month, like per office, and then you'll find out that they don't work at 50.
If things aren't breaking, you're not doing enough.
As you really, really get cooking with volume, you run out of conference room space. Yeah. So you don't think about it, but like generally we try and run a model of 4 conference rooms per office. And that allows you to do about $2.5 million out of those 4 conference rooms pretty easily. But then as we started pushing past that, the biggest issue is conference room space. So it wasn't just like people and stuff. So now all of a sudden you got to like get a new building. You can't just like add on. And there's other ways around it. You can do shorter signings. You can do shorter meetings here and there. But we picked just say, hey, let's just get more space. And so that was a big thing. And then once you get more space, you always need to go bigger because everybody wants to hire people whenever there's a problem. But really making sure that it's like that plan, that strategic. One of the things I'd attribute our biggest growth to is let marketing and sales be your leader versus your production staff.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The year that Cindy first started to retire, the reason she kept getting like pulled back in is because we were getting feelings that the staff was overwhelmed, and we've never tracked time, like true time tracking, like in a billable firm.
Yep, same.
And so we knew what it should take on what we call a SKU, or like what labor goes into a certain service. And based on that, nobody was like dying. Nobody should be at even 100% utilization or 80% utilization even. And everybody was griping. And so we couldn't figure out what happened. And then we started diving in and finding that as people had excess time, they added steps that weren't the steps that like as an owner or the leadership team we agreed on. So like in our model, the attorneys really only work about 50% of the time. The other 50%, they're in a support role for the team. But like actual client facing meetings is only about 50% of their day. What we found is then they started to take on extra responsibility of like checking work that they shouldn't have to check. And then all of a sudden the paralegals didn't care as much about accuracy because they knew somebody was going to be checking it. And then your whole foundation just crumbles. And so stuff like that just breaks. We know that most people, in order to be happy at work, need at least 60 to 70% utilization. If you hit a lull in leads, you hit a lull in sales, you better be coming up with something to keep those people busy.
Yeah.
Or you run the risk of losing them, or we run the risk of losing them, because it's really hard to dip below 60% utilization and then let marketing just really run hard, and then all of a sudden you get that boom of clients, and this production team's like, whoa, I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
Um, and so that kind of balance has been something that we worked on a lot. But as soon as you get production where it can do 50 clients a month, now you got to get marketing so that it can sell 60. As soon as you
Yeah.
get marketing so you can do 60, now you got production that's going to do it.
So you pretty much jockeyed back and forth between yeah. That's essentially what we've had to do. Yeah.
I wish it was a more clear answer. Like, you can say,
No. I mean, it makes sense. And that's
deeper. No, like we kind of
yeah.
set goals of how many families we want to help. So like in my firm, internally, we don't talk about money. We talk about families helped. And so that's really how sales, marketing, production hears it internally. It just sounds weird and abstract whenever we go outside to like the public with it. Like people don't understand what 150 families a month really is.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we're pushing. And we grow that about 10% a quarter. So again, the difference between saying, hey, I want these petitions done in 30 days versus 21 days, instead of saying I want to grow 10% a year, saying I want to grow 10% a quarter, or it just compounds better. And then all of a sudden by the end of the year, you're miles ahead of where you would have been before.
Yeah.
And making sure the team knows what that is so that they're not freaked out. Like even during the hiring process, I'm blown away about how many firms, jobs, companies, whatever, don't share KPIs with people until after they've accepted the job. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about job mismatch. Have your expectation that you're going to be filing 20 petitions a month and the person's expectation that it's going to be 4. And then all of a sudden they quit their old job and got in. Then they're like, what? Our first paralegal hire ever was an amazing lady. She was with me for 7 years. And the way we found her was at an elder council Medicaid conference down in Florida. She was working in Florida for a lady at the time. Ended up saying, hey, if you ever somehow make it to Atlanta, let us know. And her husband got transferred up here. She reached out. We hired her. And she was like, oh, I do all the VA apps at my firm. And at the time, this is like pre-2018 rule change. So we're slamming these things out. She comes up here and we forgot to ask how much is all of them. For her, it was like 4. We were doing like 6 a week. She worked out great. Like I said, she was with me for 7 years and then she retired. But like that kind of stuff's kind of crazy just because that curse of knowledge, what you think is a full work day versus what somebody else thinks is a full work day. Or
yeah, my output is generally a lot higher than what I think other people expect. Yeah. So I probably have
important too is making sure. So we grade on output. Their metrics are output, not input, because we charge billable hours. Don't come and tell me, well, I put all this extra time into it. It's like, okay, like how many did we get done this week?
Yeah, we don't care about how much time you put in. It's like get it done.
And I have some people, like I said, our requirement is really you got to be here at least 6 hours a day. Most people work 7, but I got some people that work over 8. They're just slower. It doesn't mean that they do a bad job. It's just that they aren't as quick as some of the other people. And so in order to get paid what those other people get paid, they got to produce incentive. But it's worked out well over the years. I think that it's good. I'm really tempted to do more of like that profit sharing firm wide rather than individual incentives. But again, it's sort of like a membership program. It's hard to map out one that really makes sense for everybody.
Yeah, I worked at a company that did that. It was good. The way they had it set up was like 75% of what they set aside for profit went to the executives, and then the rest of the 25% went to the lower staff, and it was unit based. So where you were in the organization, you got a certain number of units, and then tenure, you got more units. And so, yeah, it was all.
I feel like if you need a spreadsheet to do the math, it's not an incentive. It's just a bonus. Like if they can't like I put this labor or this effort into it and I get paid this, it's hard for people to connect the dots. whenever used to work for like an accounting firm, as a big four accounting firm, literally to figure out what your bonus would be, it was like this massive equation and calculation through a spreadsheet. And so everybody kind of knew what it was going to be, but we didn't really know how to influence it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would tell you, well, go have high utilization, be able to bill, and then you'll get paid more. And it didn't always work out like that. And so then it became like just confusing. So that's where I'm stuck at. Is it's a lot easier to say things like, you help this many clients this month, you get paid X.
Yeah, I think that's the most rational, and that's what we do now. So, yeah, the model when I was working there, it was like, okay, how much income came in, right? And that was all we cared about. I was on production, and it wasn't really like my production had no basis on my bonuses. It was how much income came in for the week, and when there wasn't a lot of income, it was like, goddamn salespeople, they're not right, and so I get mad at them. Yeah. So it
control and stuff like that. It's always hard. Like we do profit sharing with our probate team as a pilot right now. And man, it has been amazing.
oh yeah. How do you do it?
Receivable drop real quick. Profit sharing. Before it's like, I don't know, these people are waiting to sell a house and then we'll get paid. Then all of a sudden it's like, nope, collect my money. Like, it's before we'd argue with people like, oh, does this corporation have to go through probate? I think that maybe. And now it's like, no, that thing's going through probate. Like, so that's been really good on that team. But I think that a lot of times we lump probate and pre-planning together because they're in the same courthouse. And I think that they're very different avatars. I think they're very different people. I think that planners are trying to give a gift, whether it be assets, money, or just a lack of burden to others. And I think most probate clients, not all, but most, are what I would call takers. They're trying to get something, and they just see you as kind of an impediment to that process. Most people, they should be able to take mom or dad's will, or even if there is no will, they should be walking to the bank and say, hey, Bank of America, I'm the kid, pay me my money. And then I think the banks do us attorneys a disservice by saying, oh, you just need a letter of testamentary. Your attorney can get that to you. Yeah. So they call up thinking like, oh man, $50, they'll type this up, we'll be set to go. Not realizing, hey, this is going to be like a year-long process. So
Right. What's your biggest practice area? What generates the most revenue?
Elder law. So like pre-planning for people. We consider crisis either you're receiving care or you will be within 30 days. And that's our biggest area. Somebody that's got a diagnosis, somebody that's thinking about bringing in-home care in, somebody that's thinking about what guidance do I need to talk about an in-home care provider or an assisted living or independent living. Medicaid hasn't scaled as much as I think most people feel like it's going to because it's a timing issue for marketing. It's really hard to get people before the nursing homes put in the app. So like in our state, if you go from a hospital to a rehab bed, the nursing home will put in an application, even if you got $1 million, just so the family sees the denial on state letterhead. And then that person, you can't market to them anymore because in their mind, they've already seen the denial on that state letterhead. It's really hard to convert them afterwards. So for us, we have a big marketing challenge of timing. How do we get you or your kid in that 20-day period while you're in rehab? And we can do it well. If it was just me and a couple paras, I mean, we could have a hell of a law firm. But at this scale, I haven't figured out how to scale that well. And so that's kind of shrunk as we've grown. When I say shrunk, it stayed the same size. The firm has just grown around it. I like doing that because I feel like that's the most impactful, the most like quick, the most value that you provide for people. Yeah. But it's the kind of thing where just over the last couple of years, as the firm has grown around it and gotten bigger, and we haven't been able to figure out how to scale that well. There's a couple firms in a couple states that I've talked to that do it really well. There's a guy out of Arkansas that all he does is Medicaid planning, and he has these little You remember those Scion cubes, like the kind of like squared
Mhm.
off little.
Yeah.
He has a fleet of those and Sprinter vans, and they're all wrapped with his firm. And he literally just goes to all the nursing homes in Arkansas. And because his vans and his little cubes are wrapped, whenever people come and visit the family, he always has marketers or staff or something in these nursing homes. And so the people are seeing these ads on the side of the vans, and that's his marketing. And he crushes like that.
Is he just like posting up in the parking lot?
Yeah.
Nuh-uh. Does he approach people?
No.
Yeah.
He'll be there for like a signing. So like they'll go sign at the nursing home for like legal documents or the application or something. And while his team is there doing the signing, now all of a sudden people are seeing that wrapped car parked right out in the parking lot. It's not like he's just leaving the van there or something like crazy like that. It's all ethical, but
Yeah.
wild. He literally has like the background. He works out of a Sprinter van too, so he can be fully mobile. And like he has this like the legal bookshelves that you could like get printed behind you. Like that's
Yeah.
it's wild. He's an amazing guy, but he's crushing it just on Medicaid planning. And somehow he has a good relationship with the nursing homes. We really struggle in Georgia to have a good relationship with the nursing homes because the nursing homes don't get paid the same on Medicaid here as they do private pay. And we have a real problem with posthumous applications. So if the person dies while Medicaid's pending, we don't have the ability to guarantee that that nursing home is getting paid because part of our Medicaid process is we're going to make sure that that estate is non-collectible because that's what's right to do for the client. And so if the estate's non-collectible and Medicaid doesn't get paid out for the whole duration of however long they were there because it was pending when they died, it's hard to keep that positive relationship with the nursing home if you just gave them 20 grand in AR. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I think there's some ways around that, but again, we just started so client centric, and then at the end of the day, it's so freaking hard to hit that timing right if you're not going to get the referral from the discharged social worker at the hospital or for some kind of geriatric care manager or from the nursing home itself. And again, I know like I've been in elder council ever since like Audrey was still there, or like the Practice 42 lady. And like their big thing with Steve Riley and Audrey and all that was just do all the apps for the nursing home and then you'll get them all. And I've never seen that be a great money model. But I'm not saying it doesn't work. Again, everything works. It's just to what degree and what scale.
Right. What has you run Facebook ads for Medicaid for Medicaid planning?
Not for Medicaid, for pre-planning we've tried them for Medicaid, but again, it's a timing issue. We can't get that audience to be good enough. So say we go run Medicaid ones, we'll get pre-planning clients in from those Medicaid ads, but actual Medicaid, we're in rehab or we're in a nursing home is hard. Whenever you actually market towards Medicaid specifically, it's kind of one of those flagged words too. So all of a sudden, we really struggle with Medicaid, ABD, age blind, disabled, and clarifying in the marketing that that's what we do.
That's our biggest problem.
Versus the people that are really just looking for any kind of government assistance, not specifically like the nursing home assistance. And, so we end up fielding a bunch of chaff over that. Like it's a bunch of really angry people. Like I don't like.
Yeah, we're in that position. We're in that position right now. That's the majority of our Medicaid leads coming in is that BS.
Yeah, and so that's why I say it's just we haven't cracked it. I don't know that we can't crack it. I'm definitely open to having a round table or talking to somebody that's figured it out, but I haven't figured out. I can get 10 a month. Like I'm good for 10 a month. If I want 20 a month, I'm wasting money. It's just, again, you kind of hit these tiers or these tranches of what's economically feasible for you to pick up.
Yeah.
And if I need 10, I can get them. If I need 20, I'm fielding 200 phone calls of people that are so angry that we're not just a free pro bono attorney doing whatever they need for free, that my intake team goes and yells at my marketing team and is like, what the heck are you guys running?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually just to handle that, I just hired Smith AI to virtual receptionist to handle those calls.
Yeah. Is it actual people with Smith AI, or it's really like a
No, it's people.
AI
Yeah.
speaker?
No, they have both, but
Yeah.
we have people.
We're going to try some AI stuff for probate leads, just because those tend to convert well. We generally have 100% conversion rate on probate leads that we want. And so, like with that no money down, it's pretty convincing offer. And so I'm going to try and see if I can get AI to sign some of those things up, but we'll see.
Do you do no money down do you guys have formal end summaries up there?
I don't know what that means.
Probates.
What?
So probate. So
Yeah.
in you have a formal end summary? Are they?
We don't do small estate probate at all in Georgia. It's all full-fledged. Like the only thing that skips probate in Georgia is deposit accounts under $10,000. If they were individually owned, everything else goes through probate.
Okay. Anything below 75 here can be done in a summary probate.
Yeah.
Right.
So we don't have that.
Yeah.
If you have $15,000 in a Bank of America account that was just in Josh's name, and I die and it doesn't have a joint owner or a TOD, that thing's going through probate.
Yeah. What do you guys generally do? You do a percentage of the estate? How do you do the pricing?
Yeah, our state doesn't have the statutory percentages, but we just do 3%.
Yeah.
So kind of copy the Florida model, but we don't. If we get like a real big estate, we'll tranche it down. We have one estate that is supposedly worth $2 billion, Joe. I think that it is I don't think there's any money there. Supposedly, there's a lot of crypto sitting in this guy's account, but we'll see. But I mean, most of our estates end up being kind of what our minimum fee is. So if it's under $200,000, we'll have a minimum fee just to make sure that we're covering our costs and stuff on it.
What's your minimum?
$6,000.
Yeah, ours is 6,500. We do well, and for the summaries, anything below 75, we do 3,500 as our minimum. Mm-hmm.
And then I got a couple cases that are like contested cases that we try to do on flat rate, which I just mispriced. I didn't realize how illogical a lot of people will be. If you go into a contested case and you go to mediation and you settle that thing, 10 grand is a hell of a deal. If that person doesn't have to pay any more to go to trial, getting them to settle is a lot harder than. So those are some mistakes that I've made along the way, is saying that it was like 3%, but with a 10 grand kicker if it's contested.
Yeah.
Completely unprofitable. Highly not recommend. Like,
so you guys are doing probate litigation too?
Yeah.
We don't do that yet.
It is, if you price it right, it's extremely profitable. The problem is no associates want to do it, and it is a murderer of your calendar.
Yeah.
So, generally it fluctuates a little bit throughout the year, but we kind of keep about 4 attorneys on staff that can fluctuate between like actually those contested cases if we needed them to. But even like Thursday, I got to jump in one because it's an emergency guardianship hearing that we thought was going to get scheduled for next week, and it got scheduled for this week, and I got 2 people on vacation and blah, 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 blah. So like, that's the reason most people don't want to touch this thing, is there's no sick days. Like the judges by us, like, you ain't gonna call in saying my kid's sick. Like, it's a bad practice area, and so most people want to avoid it. But because most people want to avoid it, if you can price it right, there's a lot of money there.
Yeah. What are you generally charging on something like that?
We're generally going to charge 10 grand for retainer that's earned upon receipt.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, 10 grand. Really, that gets you up through mediation. I'm going to charge 5 grand per day of mediation, no matter how long it runs. If we go past mediation, it's 5 grand per day of trial. And so
That's reasonable.
I want to be super clear. I don't know that it's profitable. That we're trying to adjust with. And again, it depends on how crazy the case is. It depends on how crazy your client is, depending on how crazy the other side is.
Yeah.
But we're trying to figure out what that offer is. If we can get the right offer and it's profitable and makes sense, I think there's a lot of opportunity here. But I think that's where just going to the retainer and the billable hour actually makes a lot of sense with these. But then you're just like everybody else. And can you sell it? Or do you want to be in that market? Getting your team that's never had to track time, they just underreport the hours so hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's rough. I mean, whenever we do like the Zoho tracking of time versus like when people actually like track their time, I mean, it's off by 50%. Not just by like a small margin. I mean, it's
Yeah.
legitimately more than your profit margin is. And so that's what I just feel like you'd lose it all. And like I said before, we would do 10 grand as the kind of flat rate and then the 3%. And we'd lose our shirt on that because nobody wanted to settle because there wasn't any like incentive for them to not go to trial.
Right. Right.
That's just where we're trying a new thing now. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Do not take this and run with it and then blame me.
How many offices do you have now?
Technically 4, but 3 staffed ones. So I don't like doing a lot of times you'll see firms do like that hub and spoke model where they're saying they got an office and they don't really have anybody in there. So we got 3 offices that I claim. It's where they're fully staffed. You can walk in and see a team member that's a W-2 employee any day that we're open. And then we have a 4th office that's not really staffed. And so we don't really count it. It's more of a side quest project of trying to do something cool, seeing if that SEO, GMB stuff really makes a difference. But like we don't see clients there.
Are you in Atlanta?
We go around. Atlanta has like an interstate that runs around it called the Perimeter. It's a 285. And so right now we have no offices inside Atlanta. We're all on the outside of that perimeter on the north side. So all the way from the west side of the state, all the way kind of outside that perimeter, all the way from east to west.
Okay. How close are the offices to each other?
The first 2 are only 12 miles apart, but because of Atlanta traffic, it can be 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
The third one's about an hour away.
Okay.
And then the 4th one is technically in between that. So all of them are kind of that 30 to 45 minutes away from each other. But like I said, we don't really see anybody in that last one.
Yeah. Now, are all your employees in-house, like they work in office?
A couple hybrid people, 2 fully remote, but everybody else is in person.
Yeah. Is there a reason you don't get one big building with everyone under one roof?
Traffic. I don't think whenever we do heat maps on where our clients come from. So like I forget the name of it, but you can put your client's address, like export it in a commonly delimited file, no matter what your CRM is. And there's this map that will do heat maps of where your clients are and where they come from. And so what we were able to track is based on like which office they go to, kind of how far away they're really driving. And that helped us pick where the new offices would be. So like if you're getting people that are starting to drive an hour, and with our model, a lot of it's in person, like you got to come in. If it was just a one and done, I think you could pull people from around the city. So like the guy up in Pennsylvania, he only has 2 meetings. Well, for those 2 meetings, I think people will drive a long ways. For us, we generally have at least 4 meetings total. So including the sales meeting and then 3 meetings for the process and sometimes more after that.
Oh, wow.
Like for that, we got to stay pretty hyper local.
Yeah, for sure. Are your probates throughout the state, or are you kind of doing it in the Atlanta area?
Yeah, we got probate where it's 100% virtual. So the people for
Yeah.
probate don't really come in at all.
Yeah, that's the same with us.
So like my whole
Medicaid
team is out of one office. They're not really spread across the multiple offices. That's not true. I got 2 paralegals in the second office. But so that they can do remotely, they can work from home most days. Like, we're super flexible with that because the paralegals for that we've had to train, not necessarily buy. So whenever you start talking about like paralegals for probate, people don't usually let them go. So like if you get somebody that has a lot of experience
Yeah.
and they come to you and they're like, Joe, I need 10 grand raise, like you're
Done.
going to say, okay. I mean, if you haven't watched this, you can say no, but just the reality is you're going to say yes.
Yeah.
Because taking somebody from like family law and turn them into a probate paralegal, like where they're not having to be really supervised a lot, is a 90-day process. And
At
so
least for us.
the problem
Jesus.
then too is keeping them after they got that knowledge, because everybody and their dad out there is trying to poach them. And so like we got to do some pretty interesting flexibility things for those people. We got a lot of single moms and we give them great flexibility to be able to do that, where they can have all their childcare needs met, that they can work from home whenever they want to, but they can come in if their kids are being hellions. Like, we want to make sure that not only are they paid well, but that they're getting those like ancillary benefits.
Yeah.
Longevity in your probate paralegals to me is important. Like,
Super, super important. Yeah.
you know, if somebody wants to poach a estate planning paralegal, like nobody really, your estate planning paralegal doesn't have the same leverage or value necessarily as the probate ones, right? A probate one can bring in easily $500,000 each in revenue a year without breaking a sweat. Your
Yeah.
EP one can't really bring in that same value. What we found is you don't have to have the attorney in the process, but any crack in the foundation, there better be one. And so, like, for a couple of years, especially during COVID, whenever it was just hard to get attorneys, we had some paras running like a signing meeting, kind of running a binder delivery meeting and stuff like that. And it worked really well until you get that one guy or that one lady who just has like a freckle of a problem, just a speck on there. And then all of a sudden it turns into a big deal. And they're like, where's the attorney? I never met with the attorney in person. I paid you thousands of dollars. Like,
We've had that. We've heard that before.
and so
Yeah.
I think that's one of the big problems, where it would be hard for an EP paralegal or an estate planning paralegal to be able to offer the same value to the firm as a probate one. I mean, just to be real, if your probate attorney,
Yeah.
all markets are different, but if your probate attorney came and said, I want $125 a year, you're going to say, I can make that job work like that. Like, I mean, you're going to pay them as much, if not more, than some of the attorneys that you have. In Metro Atlanta here, I can hire an attorney for about 80 grand. That's kind of what my paralegals make anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know for a probate paralegal, I got to pay more than that, because most firms are going to look at that and say, well, there's no way in hell we're paying a para more than an attorney. Well, if you want to keep them, you will.
Right. Right. Yeah. You're spot on with it. Mm. Yeah. What's the name of your firm, by the way?
Nelson Elder Care Law.
Nelson Elder. Okay.
Horrible name, long email addresses. The website's nelsoneldercarelaw.com. If I had to do it over again, I would go with a much shorter name. But 10 years ago, I was young and dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't go with the name. Obviously, we went with At Cause Law Office.
So whenever we started, you had to have your last name in it in Georgia.
You did?
Years. Technically, it's still supposed to be there, but people are allowed to use trade names now. But like whenever we started, it had to have your last name in it.
Yeah, so it's like impossible to change it then. It's like,
it's we have such good brand recognition, and we have 2,000 Google reviews. Like, it's just it's a lift. I think that it's a valuable lift. I think probably Seth from Blue Shark. He does a lot with PI stuff, but he's a big SEO company and he's a lawyer too. He has some really sharp people that work with him on SEO and organic. And if you talk with him, he'd say 1,000%, I can show you all the data why it's worth doing. And I still just like, it's a lot of work. Like,
Yeah.
It's,
I'd say.
as you grow, some of the things that would have been easier to do when you were smaller are just really expensive to do.
Yeah, massive undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, even when we started, we couldn't own Nelson Elder Care, like .com. It was, some guy wanted like 40 grand for it. He wasn't even using it. It was just parked, right? Well, we were able to catch it one time whenever like the renewal didn't get done. So like I had it, but now everything's already been targeted towards NelsonElderCareLaw.com for 10 years. So it just kind of sits there still.
That's probably your email address too, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you got to change all of them.
We try to do like NECL, like the abbreviation or like the acronym for it or whatever. And then it's really hard to give over the phone. So you have N versus M, E versus B and C. I mean, it was frustrating. And so we're like, no, just Nelson Elder Care Law.
God, we have the same issue because we're at cause law office. So it's Joe at cause law office. And so it's like this double at, and then people get it all mixed up all the time. It's like, God damn it.
You need to go out there and buy whatever that domain is where it's just once so you can.
Yeah. So it's at and then cause law office.
Yeah.
I know. I probably should.
Even like, I was working with a guy who has like a kind of a version of LifeLock. So LifeLock, you know who those are. They bought every domain that has like lock in it, right? And so he's trying to work with them to buy one of their domains they have, and they're coming in saying they want like $500,000 for it.
Oh my gosh, crazy!
Anytime you want to do an adventure, make sure you have the web address first.
Right. Yeah. Well, Josh, I appreciate your time, man. You gave me a lot to think about. A lot of good stuff.
Appreciate you putting the group together. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is the collaboration is always good. I think that, with technology, with people just getting out there and understanding, the more everybody markets better, the more everybody educates better, the more all of us do. I think it just makes a difference. Yeah.
And I've kind of had that. It all comes around. It's like we came up with the non-stuffy attorney tagline, right? From reading over 1,000 Google reviews, and it was 3 things that clients wanted, right? It was that the attorneys were knowledgeable, they were competent. That was one. The other one was that they communicated, they returned phone calls, right?
Yeah.
And they were relatable, down to earth, just like them. Those are the 3 things that repeated over and over and over in this survey. So that's how we came up with the non-stuffy. It was that 3rd point, right? Mm-hmm. But we really promote the other 2 as well, because that's what the public wants. So it's like in our law firm, it's like communication has to be returned and answered. Like phones can't go to voicemail. It's like things need to be done very, very quickly, because that's what they want. That's what the public wants. And I don't know where I got off on this, but
no, I get it, man. It's you got to go with kind of what the market wants. But I'll tell you, short before we jump off here, it's like we use like that case status app or whatever that like allows everybody to be able to text in, and we have a hard time getting people to opt into like those apps and stuff. Like I think most of the people that we still work with demographic wise are still really looking for that phone call, that connection, still stuck on email, even though that app is so much faster, so much more intuitive, and so much better. Again, I think it's just going to take some time for the market to catch up with it. But I look at like what you and a couple of the other guys that you're pretty close with are doing, and I love it, man. I'm not built to be a coach or an advisor or anything like that. I'm always happy to like one-on-one and help with people, but I don't have the patience. Like whenever you talk about doing that mailings webinar and you got 100 people, like the whole fact that nobody does it afterwards would just feel like I was frustrated. So guys like you and Andrew and Paul and everybody out there that's really trying to build it, like I'm always happy to help, but my coaching is going to be blunt.
We kind of started our conversation on that today, right? You brought up, and I think, it's just, okay, why doesn't stuff like that get implemented, right? Okay, I do this webinar, there's 100 people there. Why don't 95% of them implement what we've done to be successful. Right. Yeah. And I think it comes down to putting the right people in the right places, and yeah, seeing, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want done. Now, okay, how do we get it implemented? What needs to be done to get it implemented? Okay, what do I need to be to do those things? Right. Or yeah. Anyway,
well, that's the part that's frustrating for me is I'll get people that like message me on Facebook. I'm an open book. I'll help anybody. And then like 8 months later, it's like the same question.
I've gotten that.
You're like, it's the same answer. You still got to put in the effort. Still got to get the execution. And I want to be clear. I've talked with some people that have just gone and crushed it afterwards, and I love it. But like most of the people that hit me up in that, like, Facebook Messenger inbox are just like, okay, like what's the secret? Like I'm like, it's the same when I'm looking for to lose weight, right? Like all of us are looking for that magic pill. I know what I need to do to not be fat, but like I also like Taco Bell. So
yeah, you're right. Yeah. I've told people that too, other attorneys. It's like, it's not rocket science what we've done to grow, right? Like we've grown pretty quickly in 4 years. Like we're just under 4 million. We got 21 employees. Like that's I'm happy with our growth. We grew
yeah.
I think it was like 80 some percent.
And you're in the Zimmer stuff like that is going to be super exciting to see where they're at. Like, I'm a couple years ahead of you, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to just like fly by me, which is so cool to me. Because whenever I was coming up, I didn't really have the people to look at to see, oh, you can do $1 million a month in an estate planning firm. Everybody was like, oh, break $1 million, break $2 million. It's like,
yeah,
you can do that in a month. Like,
well, we were like that, right? It was probably 2022, 2023, right around there. There's a guy in Tampa mentored us a little bit, right? And we first talked with him, like, hey, what kind of revenue are you doing? He's like, 8 million. We're like, what? Yeah. Like, that was like so far out of like any conception of what can be done. And then as soon as he said that, and he's been in practice for 11, 12 years, yeah. I'm like, if he's doing that in 12 years, I'm going to do it in fucking 6 or 7.
Yeah. I was talking with a family law attorney who's one of the brightest women I've ever met. And she was having kind of a down day. And, kind of had where her associates did a coup, took some of the firm, ran with it, and she had to build from scratch. And my response back to her was, I was like, you're one of the brightest people I know. You know it can be done. You did it so fast the first time. Now you got the like legwork in. Imagine how fast you can do it this time. Like, yeah. It's kind of the whole concept of, like I said, I know I'm a big guy, but like I still run Spartan races. I still run marathons, stuff like that. It's just the determination. It's the getting out there and doing it. It's just, you got to have somebody that tells you it's available. It's like that whole 4-minute mile thing, right? I'll probably never run a 4-minute mile anywhere close to my life, but like how many times once that ceiling's broken? But
here's the deal. You could do it, right? Oh, yeah. Like if you decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. It's the same thing.
Lessons I ever learned in life is if any man can do it, you can do it. Like, and I really do think that that's true for almost everything. It's whenever I was a teenager, I wanted to learn how to paint cars. And at the time, I thought that was just something out of my wheelhouse. And I went and met a guy, and he handed me a spray gun and said, you got a car, go paint it. It's like, again, sort of like what we're talking about. It's not rocket science. You just got to put in the work.
Yeah. And there's technology for everything. And I don't mean that in the means of like software. I mean it in the sense of there's blueprints and there's ways to do pretty much anything that you want to do. Yeah. Right. Well, you want to go to Mars. Okay, here's what you need to do. Right. You need to build a fucking rocket ship. You need to do all this stuff. Right.
Well, but it's to be real about it too. Technology is going to change the world. You look at people that are thinking, oh, I don't want to grow right now. I got 12 years to do this. I think AI is going to whip your butt. Like,
yeah.
Are you guys creeping's there? Like,
are you doing anything with AI right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I got an email in my inbox right now where Wealth Counsel wants to charge me another few grand next year. And I mean, we're going to completely replace Wealth Counsel with AI this year. Like,
is that right?
keep just going up and up and up in their fees. I don't know if you use like Wealth Docs or whatever.
We use Wealth Counsel.
Last year, whenever they like almost doubled their rates, we were like, no, this is going to be a habit, right? Like once they do it once, you're always afraid they're going to keep doing it. And as far as like actual after support, I don't feel like I've been getting the value versus the thousands of dollars I pay them every month. Like, I mean, it's whenever you got a team this size and you do individual licensing, like it gets wild.
Yeah, for sure. It gets real wild. So
Like,
how are you
stuff or anything? I mean, it's like there's ways through Zoho, there's ways through what's the one that everybody uses? We don't use it. The one that starts with a D, what is it? It integrates with Wealth Counsel, whatever the
Decision Vault?
Yeah, Decision Vault. Like we don't do that because I think that that's more impersonal than I want to get to. So like from the AI side, we're going to use it back end. You're still going to have a person interface, and then that person is just going to essentially transfer the data over. And just
create the documents.
Yeah,
have AI create it with
your own hot docs or your own document automation that makes it so that you have your scenarios set up, and then you just plug in, have like the right sample language that you can train any kind of GP on right now. Like it's simpler today than it was even like 6 months ago. But I'm not. I'm not going to say I won't, but I'd really love to not have to re-up with Wealth Counsel. I mean, everything that you cut is profit, right? You know, the profit comes out at the end of the day. So if I can take 15 grand off of Wealth Counsel bills, now all of a sudden that's 15 grand of profit. And I know it doesn't change the world, but like,
but you do that with 10 other things too, right? You start. Yeah,
well, so
then
you put that 15 grand towards marketing rather than just in your pocket. Cost of acquisitions under $500. Now all of a sudden I just got 30 clients at 5 grand. Now all of a sudden we're talking 150. We're making real money. Like
right. Yeah, exactly. One of Ashley's concerns about getting rid of Wealth Counsel is that they make updates when the laws change.
Yeah.
Right. Would you have concern about that?
Well, so I'm a co-chair on the state bar. So like I get all these emails about any kind of legislative updates and stuff anywhere. Georgia's bar is really good about sending out those legislative updates. I don't think that it's worth the amount of money that's different. And I think that if you really look at like, so I've talked to a lot of different people in Elder Docs or Wealth Docs. Most paras take 30 minutes to an hour to draft a full plan with their software. That's wild.
Yeah.
You look at these like third-party companies that will like charge you to do like your drafting, like back office Betty type stuff, and they're charging like $400 to $500 to draft a plan.
Yeah.
Like, again, this is all your profit. You figure even if you got a $5,000 case value, are you putting 10% just to that one drafting method? Like, I mean, I don't know.
Right. Man. Yeah, I totally see what you're saying.
So it's at scale, pennies add up into dollars real quick. And so,
right.
Because it's in my inbox right now. But like, I've been super happy with it. We've been with them for over 10 years. But I felt like last year they kind of put me over a barrel where it was like, we're raising rates. Here's your thing. Do you want to sign in the next 2 weeks or not? And then just drove me away.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I should probably go.
Sorry to keep you so long. You got somebody trying to.
Dude, I'd keep you here for another hour talking, but I gotta be out the door by 6. And I gotta grab something to eat. Yeah, dude, I'll talk to you for many more hours. I appreciate you coming on, and I'd love to have you on again in the near future.
Happy to. Just reach out to Allison. She'll get it set up. Always happy to connect on anything else too. So really appreciate what you're doing. Super proud to see where the firm grows for you. I mean, I think that it's really cool to see people like you come in and do what took me 10 years in half the time. Like, I think that's going to be wild. I think it's going to be awesome. I think you look at like how many families' lives you're going to impact, not just the families you help, but especially like the next stage that you guys hit is going to allow you to take people that work for you and really put them on track to be a millionaire. Like the staff.
Right.
Like Stephanie, right now, she's probably doing okay. She's paying her bills. but your next level has a real opportunity to like change her destiny. And that's what like keeps the passion going. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for you, man. Any way I can help, let me know.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.